As the great Mike Lang once said, you can spit shine your shoes because we're going dancing with Lord Stanley.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to the Friday edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am one of your hosts, Patrick Damp. You can follow me on all social media platforms at Synonym for Wet. Joined as always by the one and only Hunter Hodes. You can follow him on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can give our show's Twitter account a follow at LO_Penguins. You can find us on Instagram at LockedOn_Penguins and TikTok at Locked On Penguins. Of course, as always, we appreciate you making us part of your daily routine. Don't forget that we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. And if you're following us on YouTube, which you should be, especially with what's coming up around the corner, make sure you've hit the notification button. That way you can be among the first to know when we drop our daily Monday through Friday episodes. For the first time since the 2021-2022 season, the Pittsburgh Penguins are going back to the Stanley Cup Playoffs. And not only are they going back to the Stanley Cup Playoffs, games 1 and 2 will be at PPG Paints Arena. The Penguins with a huge, gutsy 5-2 win over the New Jersey Devils. And this was not at all the Penguins' cleanest game of the year. There were some mistakes. There were some hiccups. There were some, I would say, troubling things, but we got plenty of time to worry about that. This is a celebratory episode because I can't say it enough and not smile. The Penguins are going back to the Stanley Cup Playoffs.
It's crazy to say it out loud considering what the expectations were heading into the season, but yes, this is reality. For the first time in 4 years, Pittsburgh Penguins are going back to the Stanley Cup playoffs, and they will have home ice in the first round. You know who's also pretty happy about that, Pat? The NFL, because they don't have to compete with Penguin playoff games that weekend. I assume the Penguins will start that Saturday or Sunday, April 18th or 19th. They'll play the next game Monday or Tuesday, and then games 3 and 4, Wednesday, Friday, and then they'll be coming back the next week for game 5. And then obviously, game 6, game 7, and all that good stuff. But playoff hockey is officially returning. We're going to get at least one more run with Crosby, Malkin, and Letang as Pittsburgh Penguins.
Let's save the talk about this season as a whole for the second segment of the show. And then we will preview the back-to-back over the weekend, the home-at-home with the Washington Capitals. But before we do that, let's talk about the victory tonight. Brian Rust gets the party started after a pretty sleepy start from the Pittsburgh Penguins. And the more I think about it, because we're recording this just minutes after the Penguins put the finishing touches on that win, so I haven't had a ton of time to think about it, but this has been my entire evening is just dedicated to this Penguins victory in this show. I do actually have to give more credit to the New Jersey Devils than I do than I do scorn to the Pittsburgh Penguins. For a team that had nothing to play for tonight, yeah, we're recording this on Thursday night, so we're going to get some wires crossed here, but for a team that had nothing to play for, I do have to give the Devils credit. They came out and they played like a motivated team. When you've got nothing to look forward to but the offseason, I can respect that.
Yeah, they played hard, especially the first 5-10 minutes. Stuart Skinner was really saving the Penguins, it felt like, to start that first period. You could tell, Pat, they had been off for the last few days. I mean, this team, they had played 22 games in 38 days, basically a little less than every other day. But you can finally get a few days off. You can rest your legs. You could tell they didn't have their legs to start this game. But once Brian Rust made it 1-0, that really got them back into the game. They were forechecking a lot harder. Were they giving some things back defensively? Sure. The Devils were kind of cherry picking as I was texting you at the red line. They were kind of doing that throughout this game. But the Penguins, they were slowly but surely getting to their game. Igor Chinakov had a little bit of a sleepy start himself, and he's been awesome ever since he was acquired. But little sleepy, didn't handle the puck at his blue line right, leads to a breakaway. Obviously, the Devils hit the post there. That's huge, but he more than made up for it right after that. I mean, he was one of the best players on the ice after that little, mess up at the blue line. Felt like he had like yips there, but that's an unreal passive. I felt he was going to shoot it at first. Unreal pass to Brian Rust. And then, oh yeah, Pat, lo and behold, his backhand might be just as good as his regular release. He is disgusting as a player. And then the play that he made leading to Evgeny Malkin's goal that made it 4-2, also insane. Like, what a player he has turned out to be since he was acquired, from Columbus. He's going to get a really nice extension this offseason, and very deservedly so with the way that he's playing. He was honestly probably their best forward on the ice tonight. I also, Pat, the top line in general, I thought Sid was flying tonight, touched on Brian Rust. Big night as well from Tommy Novak. They really needed Tommy Novak tonight. I felt that his game had just gone downhill the last few weeks. Obviously, well, if you're new here watching this, I'm the president of the Tommy Novak fan club. I've liked this player all year, but he had not been giving the Penguins enough, in my opinion, as of late. Tonight, though, one of the best players on the ice.
I loved Novak's game against the Devils. And yes, the goal was nice. It was finally nice to see him get on the board, but his game as a whole was fantastic against the Devils. He was creating offense. He was getting scoring chances. He was really good in the defensive zone. His wheels were going all night long. It was one of the better games we have seen out of Tommy Novak in quite some time. We also got to touch on this. The Penguins are tied 1-1 in the second period. Tommy Novak scores a nice little goal set up from Evgeny Malkin to give the Penguins the lead back. And then 9 seconds later, Igor Chinakov makes it 3-1. And the Penguins, they never looked back from there. Jack Hughes did Jack Hughes things near the 15-minute mark of the second period. But I will say, the only reason that goes in, it hits Parker Wotherspoon's stick and deflects past Skinner. Not a whole lot you knew about that. Skinner played it right. It somehow hits Wotherspoon's stick and goes in. And then Gino in the third period, like a dog on a bone, after Crosby comes so close to scoring another highlight reel goal. Evgeny Malkin just, I'm going to make an old washed reference here, but he Leroy Jenkins'd his way into that crease and buried it to give the Penguins the 4-2 lead. Gino was another one tonight. Had a great game.
Had that dog in him, Pat, as the kids like to say. He was all over the place, but continue.
It was, as Hunter Hodes would say, a vintage Gino performance against the Devils.
Yeah, he was a puck hound all game. He was hunting for it. Every shift he was out there making small, simple, but very effective plays. Had some really nice passes. The goal that he scored going to the net mouth, jamming that puck through after Sid almost had a crazy highlight reel goal, He was everywhere for the Penguins. And again, now he's going to get his shot at going back to the playoffs, as well as Sidney Crosby, Chris Letang. I thought Erik Karlsson had another pretty good game tonight, Pat, and we're going to get playoff Erik Karlsson for the first time since the 2018-19 season, which is crazy. He hasn't made the playoffs in forever, but I am stoked for that. I thought Sam Girard also had another really good game on the second pair. He continues to improve. Over the last week to 10 days, he's been getting more comfortable on that second pair with Chris Letang. And I know if you've been listening throughout the season, I have said I have not liked that pair a lot, but slowly but surely, Dan Hughes has been sticking with it, and it has been improving. That's why he's the head coach, and I'm here behind a microphone. But I really liked his game tonight. And I did want to shout out Stuart Skinner as well, Pat. Made a lot of really big saves. It's funny. I felt that save on Siegenthaler in the third period, that totally flipped the rest of the period for me. Huge save there. The Penguins had a little bit of a breakdown in their own zone. Skinner, cool as a cucumber, makes the glove save. Everyone after that relaxes. He goes, hey, I got you guys. And from then on, I thought it was a defensive clinic for the rest of that period. It was a little nerve-wracking at the start, Pat, I will say, because the Devils are coming at them pretty hard. But once he made that save on Siegenthaler, it was smooth sailing the rest of that period.
The Siegenthaler save happened just around the 5-minute mark.
Mm-hmm.
And then that final 5 minutes in a game like this, and I know it was just to clinch a playoff spot, but we have been, if there's any Buffalo fans listening, I'm so sorry for what I'm about to say. We have been so starved of the playoffs the last couple of years that you expected that final 5 minutes going in to feel like 5 hours, but the Penguins played it so well defensively and played it so smoothly defensively that it did not feel like 5 minutes. It went a lot quicker than that, and that clock ticked down. And before we head to our second segment to talk about how great of a season this has been, this is how I'm going to transition to it. Josh Getzoff, at the end of the broadcast on Sportsnet Pittsburgh, said what we were all thinking. This was supposed to be a lottery team. This was a team that was not supposed to compete for a playoff spot. This was a team that was barely going to be competitive. And here we are tonight on April 9th, going into April 10th, and the Pittsburgh Penguins will be in the Stanley Cup playoffs with home ice advantage in the first round, if you can believe it. So with that said, that is going to do it for our opening segment. When we come back, we're in a great mood. So you know what? Let's talk about what a great season it has been for the Pittsburgh Penguins. We will do that right after this. But we got to tell you about a couple of sponsors first, and that begins with our friends at Quo. Spring is a natural reset point, and there's one thing that can quietly cost businesses money. It's messy communication. Missed calls, scattered text, no clear thread of who said what. That is why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo. It's the smarter way to run your business communication. Quo is the #1 rated phone system on G2 with more than 3,000 reviews and trusted by more than 90,000 businesses. It lets your entire team share one business number so you never miss a call, a text, or an opportunity. The best parts of it, everything lives in one clean thread. Your calls, your texts, and your voicemails. The whole team, they see the conversation, so nothing falls through the cracks. And the summaries, they will save you serious time by logging calls and highlighting all of the next steps automatically. It just makes your business feel more organized and more responsive. Make this the season that no opportunity and no customer goes away. Try Quo for free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedonnhl. That's quo.com/lockedonnhl. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. We're back here on the Friday edition, a victory Friday edition, a heading to the Stanley Cup Playoffs edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm Patrick Damp, right alongside Hunter Hodes. And if you pull up the standings page on NHL.com, there is that beautiful, beautiful X right next to the second place team in the Metropolitan Division, our Pittsburgh Penguins, with a record of 41-22-16. With this win, here's a good place for us to start. With this win, Dan Muse gets his 41st win in his first season as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins, tying the legendary Badger Bob Johnson.
What a rookie season it has been for Dan Muse. I can't say enough about the job that he has done with this team. The puck support that this team plays with is absurd. The way that this team generates offense finishes their chances compared to what you saw towards the latter stages of the Mike Sullivan era is absurd. It's literally night and day when you look at the final couple of years to Mike Sullivan compared to where the team plays now. Like, yes, are there still some defensive zone issues to clean up? Sure. I thought, later in the third period, they were making some strides in that area. They're still, they're not perfect or anything like that, but the way that this team plays, the way that he gets the most out of every single player in this team, it's outstanding. He needs to get Jack Adams consideration. I don't know if he is going to win it, considering what Lindy Ruff has done in Buffalo. Like, that team is an absolute wagon this year. But I think at the very least, you might have to at least have him as a finalist for this award. Again, he has been the breath of fresh air that this franchise has needed for the last year or two, and he has pushed every single right button with this team this year. The way that Erik Karlsson has played under him has been absurd. The way that Parker Wotherspoon has played his best hockey under him. I can say the same thing for Ryan Shea. Anthony Mantha has a career year under him. Noah Chari has his best season as a Penguin under him. I can keep going if you want me to. So many players just had, career year / bounce back seasons for the Penguins under Dan Muse. And again, I can't say enough about the job that he has done. To take this a step further, Pat, Kyle Dubas needs to win GM of the year right now. His work over the last 12 to 18 months, putting this team together, the way that he's been doing this, even though they've been kind of rebuilding on the fly, has been second to none. The acquisitions he made over the offseason, the Igor Chinakhov trade, the Dan Muse hire, I can keep going down the list if you want me to. He has also pushed every single right button as the GM and president of this team for the last year and a half. I'd honestly probably even say the last 2 years, if you want to say that. He needs to win GM of the year. And finally, congratulations to the players. They came into this year with no expectations. But as I said at the start of the season, when a team comes in with nothing to lose, they can be really dangerous. And they quickly became one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference. Yeah, there were times where I was kind of holding off saying that this is a legit good team because I wanted to see it a bit more. But once we got after that losing streak into January, into February, I was content with saying that this is a good team and that they are good enough to get in. I still had to see it to believe it in terms of making the playoffs, but I knew that this was a good team, once I think we got into 2026. I just had to see it after the losing streak. And if you haven't watched that video that they put out on their socials of the flip the script, just cooking everyone in the national media, please go watch it. It is deserved. I was texting you about this. I almost wanted them to go full, stone cold Steve Austin. They said we were going to be in the lottery. What? They said we were going to be bad. What? But what happened? We made the playoffs. Just something funny like that. That's my really 0 out of 10 stone cold Steve Austin impersonation there. But just hats off to everyone around the organization. And we will be getting playoff hockey here in Pittsburgh. Just what a magical season. And it's not over yet.
I didn't want to interrupt you because you were spitting. You were absolutely spitting. So I did want to give you some grief for you were real hesitant this season. You were real hesitant to file a claim with the We're Back department. And I was not. I thought we were back. I knew we were back, especially like you said, once we got into 2026. We saw the way this team responded to some real adversity. They didn't let it knock them down. They didn't let it destroy them. They came right back at it. They strung together a bunch of wins. One of the best moments for me was, I believe it was in February. They went to Western Canada and they walked through it. Just absolutely walked through it. It wasn't their strongest set of games, but they gritted out wins on a trip that is usually a nightmare for everybody, and they came out of it pretty much unscathed, which not a lot of teams get to do, especially a team in a precarious competitive division like the Penguins have been this season. So that was huge.
The moment for me was the Columbus comeback. That's when I filed the claim and said, okay, this team is back. They were down by 3 goals. They come back. They tie it late. Sid wins it in overtime like he often does in Columbus. I remember I came on here and said, okay, this is different now, but go ahead.
But to your point about Kyle Dubas, you went through with Dan Muse. It was a hire that had a lot of us scratching our heads. We understood it because you saw what he did as a developmental coach with the National Development Program as an assistant coach. A lot of the younger players from both the NHL and the development program said he was one of the best coaches they had ever worked with. So there was a lot of hope there. We were curious to see what he was going to do with the big boys. And guess what? He didn't disappoint. Sidney Crosby, ho-hum, 29 goals, 74 points, and another point per game season. Erik Karlsson, his best season as a Pittsburgh Penguin, 15 goals, 66 points. Brian Rust, another career year, 65 points. Evgeny Malkin, 61 points in 55 games. And then you talk about the offseason acquisitions and in-season acquisitions. Igor Chinnikov, not only is having a career year, he had a career year just as a Penguin alone. 18 goals, 18 assists, 36 points. Home run acquisition. Anthony Mantha, 61 points, 31 goals, 30 assists. Ricard Raquel, another big year, 24 for 48. And then Tommy Novak, who he acquired last season, played a single game. Big year for him, 16 goals, 41 points. Justin Brazeau, 17 for 34. And the most important one for Kyle Dubas's case to be general manager of the year, 18-year-old Ben Kindle. You can go back you don't even have to go that far back. If you go to our YouTube channel and you go to the live tab, you'll find our draft night live stream from night one. We were shocked. We were stunned. Kindle was not on any of our radars. None of us knew. Well, he might have been on the radar, but at 11,
he was on my board. That's for sure. It was a little further down. And I remember, if you go back, I did say at the time that this one's a little bit of an old take exposed. I said I thought it was a little bit of a reach because I liked Ektelin, but if you did a redraft now, I mean, he's probably going top 5. Ben Kindle was one of my early guys, though. I remember talking about it on the pod during last season, saying I really liked this kid. I mean, I don't think I expected him to be ready this early and be one of the top rookies in the NHL this season, but I had liked him going into the draft. I just had him a little further down my board than some others, but hey, I'm just glad he was on my board.
But to that point, he gets taken at 11. The consensus from just about everybody is he's a good player. He's got talent. He's got potential. But at 11, it's a bit of a reach. He has been in the NHL all season. And not only has he been in the NHL all season, he has put up 17 goals and 34 points. And he has been a reliable two-way player in the National Hockey League at 18 years old. And then the final case, and unfortunately, it comes at the expense of another general manager. For the Tristan Jarry, Stuart Skinner trade alone, Kyle Dubas should win general manager of the year because he didn't retain any money. He didn't have to give up any premium assets. He didn't have to give up any real prospects. And he gets Jarry's salary off the books, opens up more cap space. And Stuart Skinner looks like he is poised to be the Penguins' game 1 starter. And Tristan Jarry might not even dress for the Edmonton Oilers.
I think he would dress as the backup. He's not the starter right now, though. I think
if you want to be cap compliant in the playoffs, that's your cheat code.
I think he's the backup to start the playoffs for the Oilers. I don't think he starts. I think that is Connor Ingram. And if you look at like the game logs, you see who's starting. I think the Oilers are kind of strongly hinting that Ingram is going to get the net to start the playoffs. I think Jarry will be the backup. I would be surprised if he was the third goalie. He's going to be the backup to me, but still, you get out of that contract, you add a pick, a high pick that is. You also add Brett Kulak, Stuart Skinner. You then send Kulak out to go get Girard. And yeah, I know Girard, the early returns at first were not very good, but slowly but surely, he has been playing a lot better as he's been getting more comfortable in the system. You also added another future asset in that trade. So he's been great, Kyle Dubas, man. I can't say enough great things about him as the GM, as the president right now. His fingerprints obviously well all over this team. So what a season it has been. Pat still got 3 more regular season games, even though they're pretty much meaningless just because they cannot go up the standings, but they cannot go down. But could this be the final Sid Ovi matchup? I guess we're going to have to see.
We are going to have to wait and see because, like Hunter said, there still are 3 games left to go in this season, but they don't really mean anything. But we do still have to talk about them, and we will talk about what could be a historic weekend home at home. So hang with us for a little bit longer. We're going to get into that right after this. Finishing up the Friday edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast, I am Patrick Damp, right alongside Hunter Hodes, and as historic and fun as this season has been for the Pittsburgh Penguins, with them returning to the Stanley Cup Playoffs, which one last thing that I should have mentioned in our second segment, with this playoff berth, since the 2006-2007 season when the Penguins made it to the playoffs for the first time with Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and Chris Letang, the Penguins now lead all NHL teams in playoff appearances at 17, breaking the tie that they had with their opponent this weekend, the Washington Capitals. And I know that we do got to preview the game. The Caps, they are still alive. Technically, they've got 89 points. They have not been mathematically eliminated from the postseason yet, but more likely than not, they are not going to qualify for the Stanley Cup playoffs. And as we learned this past week, Ovechkin hasn't made a decision on retirement yet. And I'm just going to throw out my theory real quick. I would not be surprised if this weekend is the last chapter in Sidney Crosby versus Alex Ovechkin, because there was a lot of reporting from last season when he chased the goals record that he felt really bad about it taking away from his team, their push to the playoffs, and kind of leaving the entire spotlight on him, which I know saying that about Alex Ovechkin does sound weird, but he is still a hockey player at heart, and that's how they're wired. I get the feeling he doesn't want the pomp and circumstance of a farewell tour.
No.
And I think this might be it.
It could be. I mean, I could still easily see him wanting to return for one more season before potentially going back to Russia to maybe play there for one more year before officially calling it fully quits on his career. But it sounds like I watched the interview with John Walton of the Washington Capitals, and Ovechkin basically just said that he's going to take his time. He's going to talk to his family. He's going to talk to the Caps management, the Caps ownership with Ted Leonsis, and he's going to come to a decision at some point this offseason. If this is it, though, I just want to say how much fun it has been to watch him go against the Penguins for 20 plus years. The rivalry between him and Sid has been, just one of my favorites, 2 giants of the game. And, Penguins Capitals is not going to be the same when those two hang it up. Both of them, that is. And I'll throw Evgeny Malkin in there too, because he's obviously been a huge part of this rivalry. There have been so many great moments over the years. You think back to the dueling hat trick game, Chris Letang's winner in game 3 to really save that series, save the Penguins overall in that series. You think back to obviously Bonino in 16, game 7, where in 17, that is, where a lot of people were counting them out. Penguins go into Washington, and Washington just puts up a goose egg. The Penguins do such a great job, especially in the third period, of limiting them. Early on, it was a bit scary, but Marc-Andre Fleury, makes the stick save with his paddle, and then he has the celebration. Obviously, the Caps struck back in 2018 with their Stanley Cup, but it has been such a pleasure to watch both of them go at each other for 20 plus years. It's been one of my favorite rivalries. Not even just Crosby versus Ovi, but Penguins Capitals in general. So if it is the final chapter, Pat, it's been one heck of a ride. But okay, let's focus though on the Caps this year. It's been a disappointing season for them. I think the Pierre-Luc Dubois injury really screwed them for a lot of this season. When he's healthy, he has been good this year. Like, he's been one of their better play drivers. He's been able to finish this year when he has been healthy. You know, Ovechkin, even though he can't move like he used to, he still has 31 goals this year. Tom Wilson is on the verge of hitting 30 goals. Jacob Trickman defensively has also been really good with almost 60 points. They have Alexei Protas, who's closing in on 30 goals. They also have the other Protas brother, who is now up from Hershey, and I think he's going to be a decent player in the NHL this year. I like Ryan Leonard quite a bit. They still have Justin Zordiff, Connor McMichael, Rasmus Sandin, former Penguin Anthony Beauvillier, of course, is there. This is still a team that has solid pieces. It's just that their road record has not been good. Their power play for a lot of this season has been bad, and they've just been banged up for a lot of this season. I think that's also a big thing. And I think I knew that the Caps weren't going to repeat what they did last year. I mean, look at their shooting percentage. Like, it was insanely high. They also had the goal chase going with Ovi. You know, I expected them to regress this year. I didn't think it would be this much where they're fighting for their playoff lives going into these games. I don't think they're going to try. They're not going to get wild card 2. They're 5 points back with 3 games to go on Ottawa. Ottawa, I think, is probably going to lock that down. I think they're going to get in. And if they get Carolina, that will be a fun series. I think the path for Washington is Metro 3. Pittsburgh obviously has Metro 2 locked up. Washington right now, they're 3 points back of Philadelphia, but they only have 3 games left. I think, Pat, you're probably going to have to win all 3 of these games if they even have a chance of getting in. The Islanders also won tonight. They're 1 point back of Philly. You know, it's still going to take quite a lot for Washington to get in here.
It's going to be a big lift for the Caps to keep themselves alive. So we'll see what happens with that. But I have seen some concern from people that they think this magical season by the Penguins is going to be followed up by what happened to the Capitals this year. And I'll say this about the Caps this year. I don't think this was as much of a regression as it was a bad luck year. There were injuries. Their shooting percentage wasn't as great. And they didn't really get a lot of help outside of Logan Thompson in net. Charlie Lindgren, 9-8-3, 3.5 GAA, 879 save percentage. That you don't need, especially when you have a goalie like Logan Thompson, who is really, really good. You don't need a great backup, but you need a steady backup who can take some of the workload away from him. And it feels like they almost couldn't trust Charlie Lindgren to do it. So they probably rode Logan Thompson a little too much this season. Couple that with the injuries and the shooting percentage regression. It was just a tough luck year. I don't think that the Capitals next year are going to be any worse for wear. They've got plenty of really good young talent on the roster and in the system. And you mentioned the Protas brothers, man. If you don't know about them yet, study up, because they are going to be a problem for a while. They are big, they are talented, and they are fearless. So good luck, everybody else.
And Cole Hudson is also here full time, and I think he's going to be a stud for them on their back end too. Like, that's their John Carlson replacement after they traded him at the deadline. I like their front office quite a bit. They're pretty aggressive. Their pro scouting has been very good, but you know, I'm still curious to see if they make a pretty big aggressive move via the trade market this offseason. But again, you know, keys to victory here. You know, I like the Penguins PK against the Capitals power play. It's not the vaunted Caps power play that you remember when they had Nick Backstrom, TJ Oshie, John Carlson, Alex Ovechkin with his bombs. You know, you still have Ovi with his bombs, but a lot of those other guys are no longer there. Tom Wilson, Pat, you know what you're going to get out of him. He plays like a rat. He annoys the hell out of you. He's good around the net. He can score at will. Been a Penguin killer for a long time. That's one of the biggest priorities for this weekend. It's all going to come down to, Pat, for me also, does anyone get rest this weekend? Does Dan Muse decide to rest some of his starters in one of the two games this weekend, because I think he's definitely going to do it on Tuesday in St. Louis. I have to double check how many standard recalls they have left, but if they still have quite a few, going to call up some guys from Wilkes-Barre. Wouldn't be surprised if Sergei Murashov gets that start, at least to kind of reward him for the season that he has had in Wilkes-Barre. But curious to see how they attack these two Caps games, because there's really nothing on the line for the Penguins. Washington has everything still to play for, but curious to see how many regulars get in this weekend versus how many, potential healthy scratches you see, to kind of put it like that.
For at least one of these games, if not both, considering it is a home and home, I want to see the big three go up Ovi at least one more time. Because again, I'm still very much convinced that he's done after this year. So I know that the playoffs are the bigger fish to fry. I get all of that, but sometimes history is staring you right in the face, and you just got to look at eye to eye. And you owe it to the sport to do something like that. But two big games, big for the Caps, not big for the Penguins. We're going back to the playoffs, ladies and gentlemen. But 3:00, both Saturday and Sunday. Saturday at PPG Paints Arena, Sunday in Washington. Both games are nationally televised games. Saturday will be on ABC, and then on Sunday, TNT and HBO Max. So our boys at Sportsnet Pittsburgh get themselves a nice little weekend off to celebrate clinching the Stanley Cup playoffs. And so do all of you. And I just got to say, as we're closing it out, get ready. This is your place to be as the Penguins get ready for the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We're going to have a lot of guests. We're going to talk to some people here from Pittsburgh. We're going to talk to the enemy from Philadelphia. If it is Philly,
if they get in
Columbus, I feel like it's going to be Philly though. So, maybe I'm just manifesting, but we're going to have all that. We're going to talk to people here. We're going to talk to the opponent. We are going to make sure you are as prepared as you can be for the Penguins' return to the Stanley Cup playoffs. But that is going to do it for the Friday edition and this week of Locked On Penguins. Hunter and I will be back to recap the weekend and start getting you ready for the Stanley Cup playoffs on Monday. So for Hunter Hodes, I am Patrick Damp. Thank you as always for tuning in. We're back, baby. We're back in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Talk to you on Monday.